Hey everyone, it's Chop back on the video, and today we're going to be diving into Queen Hell Stage 2. Now, I already did my video on Ashe, and now we're going to be diving into Queen. I actually have a free-to-play comp here for you all. It's not super easy to achieve. It's obviously endgame content, but the characters and the gear requirement are actually not super difficult. Queen tends to be an easier dungeon than the other ones to complete, and there's no difference in Hell Stage 2. So we're going to be diving into the gear, the requirements, and some other comps as well that you could be using. So let's dive into it. So here we are, and this is the comp I wanted to show you all today. Now, this comp is not entirely free-to-play friendly. We do have Virgil here, but as such, with my previous video on Rujago for Queen 12, you can just replace Virgil here with Valuk and end up with the same results. Now, there's something that you do have to do with Valuk that you don't necessarily have to do with Virgil because you do need a little bit more damage from Valuk in order for this to work with him. So we're going to go over all that, but this comp runs on average about 4 minute 30 seconds run in Queen 14, which is very, very impressive considering that some of the fastest times that we've seen out there are like 2-minute comps. So this is free to play friendly and very, very reasonably easy to achieve. So we're going to dive into what the strategy here is and all the stats. All right, so here we are in the battle, and I wanted to showcase this first before we go into the stats so you all can understand what I mean when I'm talking about certain things. So first off, we're running defense down and heal spell, and these are very, very important because we need to kill off these two crabs over here, the tide guards, before they get their second turn. For any of you that have tried Queen or any of the stage 13 and 14 dungeons, you'll know that these ads hit like an absolute truck. If you get hit by one of these, your whole team wipes oftentimes, or if you get hit by two of them, you're almost guaranteed to wipe. So we need to kill these guys before they get these cooldowns off. So first thing we're going to be doing is running defense down. We're going to be running a Virgil and Santis here. If you're running Valuk, the same thing applies. They both have AoE third skills. So obviously on auto, Virgil's going to use his third ability. He's going to go in for the AoE and he's going to hit. And then Santis is going to go. She's going to have abilities turned on. So she's also going to go ahead and ultimate here. And then we're going to dive into Zatlux. And it's very, very important here that Virgil and Santis are going before Zatlux. And then Zatlux is going before Hakron. And I'll explain all of that in just a moment. But this Virgil, I prefer him to go before Santis because he has that debuff or the buff dispel. So I like him to go before Santis, but it doesn't really matter too much. It's just really important that Zatlux goes before Hakron and after Santis and Virgil because he needs a little bit extra damage for the second wave. So we're going to go ahead and Zatlux would go ahead and use his ultimate on these little mini crabs here. And he's going to go ahead and clear out all or both the mini crabs and then hit one of the big crabs quite hard. And then Hakron would go. He's going to use his ultimate ability, which is exactly what he's going to do on auto. And then the crabs are going to go. And then here's where it gets very, very important to where the turn order becomes very, very important because we cannot survive a singular hit from any of these crabs. So Virgil was going to go ahead and use his second ability. Santis would go ahead and use her second ability. And then it would be Zatlux's turn again. He's going to go ahead and have that ultimate refreshed. And he would go ahead and use it on the lower HP crab. And it would kill off that one crab. Now here's where a lot of people would fail because Hakron here, if you had Zatlux going after Hakron, Hakron would not be able to go ahead and taunt this crab right here. So he would go ahead and use this, taunt the crab, and now the crab's going to go ahead and do basic attack. So now we can go ahead and just quickly finish off this crab, and we're going to survive the first wave. Now the second wave has a similar principle, although it's only one crab, so we don't even need the taunt for the second wave. But we'll go over that when we get to it. But I wanted to showcase this just to show how important all these stats are and where the turn order is very, very important. So let's go ahead and dive into the stats and then come back to the run here. All right, so we're going to go over the stats and characters here. Now, all the other characters are pretty self-explanatory, but Virgil here, a lot of people don't know why we're using him. First thing is we're going to have a Dispel on basic, which is going to allow us to remove all the buffs from the Queen boss. The third thing, or the second thing here is the AoE ultimate. It's important that you have an AoE ultimate on the character that you're going to use in this slot. So Valuk does work. He does have an AoE ultimate because you need Zatlux to be able to clear out the first and second waves. And oftentimes the second wave, you don't have defense down, so you don't have quite enough damage without this little bit of extra fluff damage, which is also why we have Santis' abilities on. Now, if you do run Santis with like crit rate, crit damage, you might be able to run Santis alone, and you could run a single target person in this slot, but it's oftentimes going to have you increase your Zatlux's stats. Now, we also have the Arcane Sanction passive here, which If you don't know, he has a 40% chance to apply, and if the enemy uses a skill with this debuff on, they're going to take 20% of their max HP and damage, which is a massive hit. Now, for Virgil's stats here, we're going to want him to go first because he will go ahead and remove buffs from the boss stage so Santis can go ahead and land her poisons more often, as well as we need him to go ahead and use that ultimate before Zatlux. He's going to have 100% focus to make sure that we're landing that Dispel. He's going to have that crit rate for him to do a little bit of extra damage, and he's going to have 14k HP and 1200 defense. Now, he also needs to have less attack than Hakron, or rather, Hakron has to have the second most attack on the team, and you don't need that much HP and defense. He also is running in a revival set. You're going to need revival sets on all your boss squads so that they survive through the boss stage. Next up is going to be Santis, and Santis is also in a revival set, as you can see here. She also has the second most speed at 168, a solid amount of HP and defense. You don't need this much HP and defense, but if you're running Ascension 0 Santis, you're probably going to need this much HP and defense, because if you don't have Ascension 5 Santis, the runs are going to go longer, and you're going to need to have more HP and defense to make up for those the longer run. Next is 107% focus. We do need that. Now, you do want to mention also that you don't need Ascension 2 on Virgil, although it does make the runs significantly faster. Then the third one in the turn order is going to be Zatlux here, and Zatlux is the real one that you need to have a lot of gear requirement for. You're just going to need a very solid damage dealing set, because you're going to need to get faster speed than the Wave and also faster speed than Hakron, as we went over, and you're going to need enough damage to kill off the mini crabs and kill off the big crab in 2 turns. Now, this also requires you to oftentimes have Ascension 2 Zatlux, but if you're running Hell Stage 2, you oftentimes will have that, because when you kill a mini crab, you're going to get that attack up buff, which will help you kill off the big crabs. Now, these are a little bit over the minimum stats. You could probably run about 4,700 attack, as well as about 270% crit damage. Now, if you don't have the enough stats to kill off the crabs in 2 turns, you're going to lose. There's no really running about it, or rather killing off the crabs within 3 turns for that first stage, and then 2 turns within that second stage, because you can have a little bit of extra leeway on that first stage, as we saw from that first round. Next up is going to be Hakron, and Hakron here is going to have 141 speed, 3,400 defense. You can see he has 2k attack, which is more than Santis and Virgil, 16k HP here, and then we're going to have 84% focus. So we're going to need a lot of defense to make sure our team is surviving on the boss stage. The HP is a little bit more than we actually need. We do need to have him the second most attack, and the 84% focus is very, very important. 80% focus is good enough on all your characters that need to land their debuffs or their strip spells. And if you're running on the boss stage, it's nice to have 100% focus to make sure that we're landing our debuffs even through the resistance buff up from the Queen boss. But 84% is good enough here on Hakron, and he's also running in a revival set. All of our boss characters are running in a revival set. It's very important that Hakron, Virgil, and Santis, or if you're using Valuk in Virgil's spot, then Valuk, all run in revival set, because when you get to that boss stage, Zatlux is going to die off, and then you're going to have those 3 left, and so Hakron's going to tank the stun from the Queen, and they're all going to live quite nicely with that revival set with enough healing from there. So that's pretty much how the squad works. Again, if you do not have Virgil, you're not going to run Virgil. It's very important that you run Valuk with crit rate to make sure you have enough damage to get through the waves, because on that second wave, you're not going to have the defense down spell, and you're going to need a little bit more damage on an AoE for Zatlux to get through the waves. So that's pretty much the whole run, or the whole strategy and the stats. Let's go ahead and run the run and just talk through all the points as we go through. All right, so we're jumping into a run here, and we have it on auto now, and you can see there, defense down spell goes ahead and goes off. Santis is going to use her ultimate. Zatlux is going to use his ultimate, which is exactly what we did on manual. And then Hakron is also going to use the HP up. So it's exactly how we went through it. Just I wanted to show you all before we went into a run to see exactly how this comp is working. Because really, the real difficult part about these hell stages is the waves. The bosses are actually relatively easy comparatively to the rest of the difficulty of the dungeon. And you can see there, Zatlux doesn't quite kill off in the second round. And that's okay, because as we have Hakron in the last of the turn order, he's going to go ahead and taunt that crab. And so if you don't quite have a Zatlux that's going to be able to 2-shot the big crabs in the back, then you can go ahead and use this. And then here, Virgil's going to go ahead and go twice with that Rage passive, which is very important. And then now we're going to have enough damage with our Zatlux to clear out the waves. And you can see there, my Zatlux, even with 5k attack and 285% crit damage, still kind of barely kills off the mini crabs. So it's very important that you run Valuk or characters like that with a little bit of crit rate, or Santis with crit rate, to make sure you have enough damage to get through the waves. Because I know that some people have tried to use Valuk and they are struggling to get through that second wave because they don't have quite enough damage from their AoE abilities, and then their Zatlux. So either you need your Zatlux to be upped in gear, or you need your Santis and your Valuk with crit rate. Now here, we're going to be targeting right ad and then boss, same as we did with Queen 12 initial comps, because we don't have anything to get through the healing, or avoid the healing rather. And you can see here, I just want to point this out again for those of you that don't know what Virgil does. You can see there, the Queen boss just did 76 KHP in the yellow number there, because Virgil landed the Arcane Sanction passive. And then when he does that, he's going to go ahead and take 20% of your max HP and damage when you go ahead and use an ability. So that's one of the reasons why Virgil makes this run so quickly. And one of the reasons why the stats are not insanely high is because Virgil is removing those buffs on the Queen boss. And he's also killing off the left and right crabs periodically, because he is landing that Arcane Sanction debuff on those crabs. Now, this run does go for a little while, so I am skipping around a little bit here because you don't need to necessarily see the whole run. It's very self-explanatory once we get to the boss. Salix is going to die. The Arcane Sanction debuffs are going to go out. We have the ultimate abilities on. We're going to slowly kill off everyone here, and then eventually get to the end of the run. So it pretty much goes off like this, and we just sit here and wait for the crabs to die off, and then the Queen boss to die off. You can see there's the first crab, and then once you go ahead and kill that crab, all the buffs are going to be removed from the Queen boss, and then Virgil can slowly kind of remove the buffs as we go along with his basic ability. So this pretty much just goes on for another couple of minutes, and then the run is over. So I'm going to go ahead and just let this run for a little while, and might skip ahead. You can see there, I do want to mention though that the Queen is targeting Hacker with that stun spell, and that is super important to make sure that that happens. So let's go ahead and just skip ahead when we do finish it and showcase the time here. So that's going to be the end of the run, and we did land quite a few Arcane Sanction debuffs on the enemies this run, so it's probably going to be a little faster. There you go. It's about a 4-minute run. This is not the average time. This is a faster run in general. The average time runs about 4-minute 30, 4-minute 40 seconds, because there can be a time when you run about 5-minute 20-second run, and there's times where you can run 4-minute runs like this one. So on average, it's going to be at a 4-minute 40 second run, which is pretty solid for Hell Stage 2. I mean, this is similar time to my initial, or my Queen 12 comp about a week ago, so I'm very happy with this run. And if you're running Valuk here, you're going to run on an average about a 5-minute run as well, which is pretty solid as well, especially since this is the end game dungeon running at this point. So that's going to be this comp, and everything you need to know about this comp specifically. If you do want to see some more Queen Hell Stage 2 comps, I do have a couple other ones, and they're all over the place in time. But I figured I'd showcase the free-to-play friendly comp before, because this is about as free-to-play friendly as you can get. You know, you're running your Zatlux, you're running your Santis, you're running your Hacker, and you're running your Valuk if you happen to run that one. If you're running Virgil, I recommend you do, because it is a little bit faster. So that'll be it for this video, and I hope to see you for the next one.